Do we both have TSM at 10th place, if for the lulz, if nothing else? You
No.
don't? Oh
No.
my God.
Maybe I'm overhyping TSM. I don't know. But here's the thing. I don't actually think TSM's roster is that bad. Like, I don't, put it this way, I do have them at 9th, but I didn't have them in 10th. No.
Okay.
I have its 10th Immortals. Even though by the way, this is why I'm saying I actually think this is a pretty hard fucking split. Because when I look at the Immortals team, they have a few players I like, actually. A few players I think are sort of like slightly underrated. But I do think overall, the difference is, for me, the bottom 3 teams, clearly to me, is Immortals, TSM, Golden Guardians. And so for this one, I just think that, like, I just think this has the lowest floor. Like, I could see all these players. I don't know who the exceptional players on this team. By the way, spoiler though, at least Tactical has had the full market correction. He is where he deserves to be now. He can play an LCS. I'm okay with that. You don't have to run him out of town completely, but this is the team you're allowed to play for. Not anyone good. You can just play for this team.
I think Tactical is the weak link that you have on this roster. I think we know exactly what he is. So here's my argument for why.
Where did you have them though? Where do you have them all?
9th. Here's why.
Oh, you have them 9th anyway. Fair enough. Okay.
Here's my argument for why they deserve to be 9th place. At the end of last year, they got really screwed because their GM left at the same time that their coach did. Right? So Immortals was in a really rough position in the offseason, which caused them to have a roster that maybe was pretty suboptimal because they were scrambling to put it together. And Giotto really was, I think, the core of this team before he went off to Team Liquid. Obviously, he very deliberately brought in Xerxes and Destiny, and they weren't able to really put together a cohesive roster that made a lot of sense after that. And they were struggling in terms of finding a coach, leadership within the team. Revenge kind of became the GM of that team in a weird way. And they did make some moves that made sense. So, for example, they got Kenvi, who is a player that had a lot of promise. I think he had some rough games as a rookie, but that's to be expected. Revenge is pretty good as a top laner. He's certainly not bottom in his role within, I think he's probably mid-tier in his role within LCS as a whole. Blaze Olive had some good games and some carry games, and I think has a pretty high floor as far as LCS performance goes. So the question for me really is Tactical and Fleshy in the bot lane. I have never been enamored with Tactical as a player, and I don't know much about this Fleshy guy, but Immortals having stability through the offseason, having time to develop Kenvi more, I think is going to be really important. And you also have to remember that Immortals, in spite of their record, they won games that they just threw basically at the end. If you remember, their record should have been better last year than it actually was.
The lineup underperformed for sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they would get really good advantages and then just completely choke away those leads. I don't think that happens again. I think this is going to be a more stable team coming into this year. And unfortunately for them, the parity of the rest of the league has gone up. And I think that they will be competitive and they will surprise people with some upsets. I think this roster is okay. So I think TSM's roster is worse. I think Solo is a stopgap player. I don't even know who this Boogie guy is. I know he played on like Flash Wolves back in the day, but he's been, kind of languishing in LLA for a while. So is this a savvy pickup or is it a budget pickup? Neo's a fine player. Maple is okay at this point in a career. It does pain me that a player that it has been so good historically is kind of relegated to this position on the roster. I guess he did play with Boogie on Flash Wolves. No, I guess they never overlapped, I think.
No, I think you're right. I think maybe the season
they never
when
overlapped.
He just left to LPL was when that guy joined Flash Wolves.
Yeah, so they actually don't have any synergy, so it is even kind of more confusing. But obviously, Maple would have known through some of his former teammates and connections at Flash Wolves about the potential of this guy. But TSM's clearly going budget. And I think that this roster does look like it kind of has the lowest upside of any of these LCS teams.
Yeah, basically, the reason I didn't have them 10th is because I just think the laners, Solo, Maple, and Dior, like, there's some pretty solid players for LCS.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Like, I assume at least 2 out of 3 will be decent enough, so they'll be able to win some games and play through some people. The Boogie one, I'm with you. I don't know this guy at all. So, like, I mean, I'll have seen him play Flash Wolves years ago, but I don't remember this particular player. Especially because, as you say, that was the period when the LMS got way less interesting when Maple and Sword Art and those guys went to the LPL and left the region. Carcer had gone. Like, at that point, no one really gave a fuck about that region. So, what I assume at this point in time, my logic is it must be through Choi, because Choi's been the coach the last like season or so. And they not only before that had the Sword Art deal, now they have Maple, now they get another guy from LMS. It looks like basically the reason why I assume it's the Choi guy is because that just looks like when you have a coach / GM, they tend to recruit from who they know. So if they know the scene, and this guy, even though he's Korean, played in the LMS, they're probably thinking maybe he's like a hidden gem in the same way as like if you have Papa Smithy, you are going to get one of these 2 players in your team, either some player from the Oceanic region because of his background, or someone like Vikla, someone he thinks is like a hidden gem of the LCK who might be, you know, better in a smaller region. So
not sure he was so hidden, but we'll
but to Western as he is, though, you know what I mean? Like, no, you can tell no one watches LCK, mate. Like, the joke now, for real, about LCKs, it's gotten even worse. Before, they used to watch, but they meant just watch for fun on a side monitor. Now it's worse, Monty. I think now the LCK has become like the NFL, where you can tell the people who only watch the big Monday Night Football or the Sunday game. Like, you know, the people who only watch the televised game. And unfortunately, they base all their opinions on that one game. It's like, who's good? That's what LCK is now. So I think on that one, he was a hidden gem. So to me, I assumed the Choi guy's angle is why they're making this team. I don't think it's bad. It's just there's no reason this team should contend. Like, I don't know how it could even. I don't even know best case scenario what they could do. What be like 6th or something, best case? Like, it ain't great bad. Is the point. It ain't great. And then let's be real, you still have to factor in because of the even though TSM themselves, because they're so fucking disingenuous, came out and publicly stated that the FTX deal won't be a big deal. It obviously is a big deal. Like, there's a reason they announced that deal, like, this is the greatest thing of all time, because they thought that was like essentially funding for 10 years, guys. They were going to be getting like, what, 10 million, 11 million a year for 10 years. If you don't have that money in this current world we're in now, like, after this year, the joke is TSM is not a top League of Legends org anymore, Monty. Like, for real, look at the rosters. They are at best like a playoff team now. Like, it shouldn't even get better. That's the saddest part. Like, the joke is we really did just sit by the river and wait for the body of TSM to just float by. That's all we've done. The whole war's over.
As they keep as their GM, or their VP of esports, or whoever he is, Dominic keeps telling their fans on Discord, you know, they're gonna get that CS:GO team eventually, Thor. You just wait. That's where the real money from TSM is going to go. I mean, if you're TSM too, you thought that money was basically a slam dunk because Sam Bankman-Fried was a TSM fan.
Yes.
That was the whole thing. So you thought you had that guy fucking hook, line, and
the joke being, I should absolutely like work that in and do like an addendum. You know, I did that video years ago, why no one likes TSM fans. They should be like addendum. Like, it's like essentially a TSM fan destroyed the entire economy. Like, there you go. That's TSM fans for you guys. Exactly.
Well, also historically, TSM has had weird polycules associated with it, so it's all lining up. All the
joke is, Monty. Like, again, we do this very carefully, but the joke is we should have a skit where the joke is that, like, they actually got the idea for the polycule from visiting the TSM offices one day. They were like, "Oh, that's weird. Didn't you used to date her?" Well, yeah, I did, but you know, then I got this new guy in, like. Interesting. Like, and you all still work together? Yeah, it's going great. Actually, we just won the split. That was like 2 years ago, remember? They won that summer split in 2020. No, because the sad thing is, by the way, as an aside, if I was a TSM fan in League of Legends, dude, I'd be really bummed out. Because as you mentioned, think about what the off-season has been like, not for League of Legends. So they've heard that TSM, maybe they were trying to get Valorant. I'm sure they were one of the teams fucking in the mix for it. Obviously, in fucking CSGO, there's all these hints for 3 months now. Maybe they're coming back. Maybe they're going to get relevant team. If I'm the League of Legends fan, and I'm sitting there, by the way, as Double Lifted Bjergsen come back, but for 100 Thieves now, I would really just be like, what the hell? Like, what am I supporting anymore? Like, are we not trying to be number one? Like, is League of Legends no longer like a top priority? Because it feels like LCS is nowhere near the top of the TSM priority list.
Yep. No, it's not.
Like you said, this is a budget roster, obviously.
To be fair, this is exactly how it should be in LCS. You have a declining, literally, you have a declining product in terms of viewership that's just been moved to a time slot that is clearly designed to maximize viewership. But is that viewership North American? No, because Riot says we can get better numbers by having Europeans watch this league because there aren't Americans on the West Coast who are going to watch this product. Even the ones on the East Coast that put all the best games at the start of the day at 3 p.m. on the East Coast of America. So it's even hard for those people to watch the most hype matches. But they think that this is going to be better for the overall viewership. Now, what's the knock-on result of that? Well, by the way, guys, I tweeted this, but we've already seen what's going to happen because they released the co-streaming applications. And within that co-streaming application was a little nugget because they said, here are the categories that our co-streamers cannot compete with of their own sponsors. And you know what wasn't in there? Well, insurance wasn't in there and beer wasn't in there, which means that State Farm, who has been sponsoring LCS for 5-6 years now, they're out the door. Nice. And Bud Light also out the door. What do these things have in common? Oh, they have a primary interest in the American market. Because when these sponsors hear, oh, well, over half of our audience is European, what the fuck is the point of sponsoring LCS? And for those of you guys who think, oh, well, they'll just switch to a global sponsor like Coca-Cola. The viewership on LCS is not big enough to even tap into global marketing budgets like that. Especially when it's on the decline.
This might sound weird and counterintuitive to a fan, but one of the weird things you discover when you go into the world of trying to get big sponsorships is there are actually chasms that are really counterintuitive. Like as Monte's saying here, even if Coca-Cola said to you, oh, we'd love to work with you, when they found out your numbers are as low as they are, the joke is they're actually going to say, oh, you're actually not big enough for us to give you as much money as we want, because we only want like a $10 million deal, and your deal's worth like 200K or something. You know, well, I'm exaggerating, but you get that point. Like the point is to them that's small fry. They're not going to waste their time with that. So unfortunately, if you're going to do the giant ones like you're referring to, you need to basically hit some big metrics. Because the idea is they want to do a couple of giant deals across massive spaces, and so at the moment LCS just wouldn't qualify for that, guys. I know it sounds counterintuitive, like you can sort of be too good but not good enough for the next level, but that is where they're at the moment.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.